Okay, moving on. So machine learning specialty, right? So you're going to sign up by logging into the click on the exam, schedule with Pearson VUE. Now, this is going to also yet take you to another site because Amazon loves to chain in things like this. I know that things are very weird and very uncomfortable and honestly dangerous a little bit with the pandemic. I kind of minimize that, probably horrible. I would say that if you trust the testing center, I would highly recommend that you go to the testing center. They're isolated. They usually put you in your own room. You're separate from everybody else. You know, everything is wiped down after you're done. Call your testing center and find out if it's usable. Because I got to tell you, I would recommend that. If you decide to take it online, which is actually how most of us have been doing it, just be aware that one, you can't use your booze equipment. Zscaler will cause all kinds of problems. You know, I've had like one student, two students who lost the exam because Zscaler blocked them. They couldn't get back in for 30 minutes. Let's just avoid all that. Just don't use the booze equipment for that. Now, your testing space, by the way, has to be a desk that you can take pictures of all four sides of, and you can take pictures underneath it. You can't have anything on the desk other than a monitor, one monitor, keyboard. Sometimes they'll let you keep the second monitor if you unplug it. But if it comes back on, they'll say something to you. You can't have a watch on. You can't touch your face. You can't talk. You won't be able to get up and go to the bathroom. And doesn't that sound horrible? Yeah. Let me tell you, when you take these certifications, you've earned it because it's not the most ideal of like study environments as far as like taking a test. Dude, like, so I was like, so I like to talk to myself, to think problems out loud. And so I was like, okay, so a company A is da, da, da. And they were like, Mike, Mr. Forrester, can you please stop touching your face? And I was like, oh yeah, the rules did say that, didn't they? So I stopped touching my face, and then I did it again. I just forgot. I started rubbing my beard, you know, I'm like talking to myself. And they were like, Mr. Forrester, this is your second warning. Let you know that, you know, you will forfeit the exam if you do it for a third time. Like that, I can't imagine the difficulty they're under trying to acoustically fingerprint an entire like room, because that's what they're doing. And yeah, for 3 hours. So no bathroom, you know, so like don't drink a bunch of coffee and then come, because that's a diuretic. And so, you know, something might happen because if you leave, you forfeit. Um, do note that if you have pets, you want to lock them away, because if they come jingling around, the proctor is going to interrupt your exam to ask you to take your camera and show them what's going on. So something to know. What's the other thing that they've done before? Oh yeah, my kid burst in one time. So my son Liam, he burst in. He's like, "Dad, what's going on?" I'm like, "I am taking an exam." And you know, immediately, you know, if he had shouted out like S3 is the answer, I'm pretty sure he would have canceled on the spot. But they let him walk out, and everything was fine. Right? He just forgot. That's all. He's 14. That's what happens. Okay, so that sounds really inviting, doesn't it? You're like, "Woo, Michael, that sounds like a joyous good time. Thanks for telling us." Right? Okay. Other things to note is that you need to show up 30 minutes early for your appointment. The first time, particularly, because you're going to have to walk through a bunch of pictures and take pictures of your ID. All of that, by the way, is covered in all of these links that you at least want to skim one time. Okay. Then you're going to come in, and I believe you're going to validate the language that you want for written for language. They don't say this, but it is the written language, obviously. I don't know why the ML one is only in Korean and Japanese. The other ones have way more languages. Then for some reason, they're going to ask you for a confirmation. Excuse me. And then what's going to happen is you're going to click away basically your firstborn, your secondborn, any winning lottery tickets that you get in the future, and any genetic material you may have on your person. I'm just kidding. They just want to do facial comparison and stuff like that. Nothing really weird in here. They will define then a lot of the stuff that I just told you as far as acceptable documents, and you know, that, you know, how to get support if you need it. On exam day, they're going to tell you where to go. And then notice for the rescheduling policy that, you know, exams cannot be scheduled 24 hours, you know, less than 24 hours prior to your appointment. I will tell you 48 hours is probably a safer bet, but you never just say this. Canceling, by the way, they'll let you cancel anytime you want to. and they'll give you your money back. And so if you cancel, you won't lose the voucher, by the way. The voucher comes back to you, the code. So don't worry about that. If you reschedule, you get 2 reschedules, and they're going to ask you to cancel it and just set up another thing. Okay. This is, by the way, where it says you can't stand up, you can't use scratch paper, you're not going to the bathroom. Please do not touch your face, do not mumble, do not speak out loud. You must follow all commands set by the proctor. You must understand that nothing can be within reach. No water, nothing. You can't have any of that in reach. You're hearing it from me, so you don't hear it from them. Okay. I'm waiting for someone to post. For 3 hours again? Let's see. Keith. Linux is not supported. So yeah. I mean, you can try the Boost laptop, but sometimes it blocks the site. So you can test it out and see. But if Zscaler gets a wild hair and decides to block out that site, you will lose access. I gotta tell you, Devin, when I take it, like, you know, I've got this table over here, which you can't really see. It's got a laptop on it, and I usually just put a wire in it. And then I'm usually just like hunched over like a mad scientist, like this little tiny little laptop, just kind of like, you know, trying to take this exam. I try not to move. Obviously, I don't stand up or anything. So yeah, it's fun. It's a fun rite of passage. By the way, this doesn't change no matter what exam you take. Apparently, they only do proctoring in English or Japanese. We thought that French at least would be on there. Maybe Spanish. I don't know. Anyway, so you do that, and then the next thing you do is it's going to ask you questions about like what time do you want it. So let's say that we're going to do it in February, because I want to do it today, because like, isn't today Groundhog Day? It's also, isn't it like the Chinese New Year as well? Isn't it also Imbolc if you're pagan? All right, so come in here, choose. I chose Saturday. I do usually switch it to 24-hour time, just because, man, you do not confuse military time with any other time. And here's a general rule of thumb. Pick the time where you're awake without coughing. So that probably would be 9:30 in the morning for me. So you choose that. They're going to ask you again to confirm. And you can also add a second exam if you're crazy, like me. This is where you stick your voucher code. This is where the voucher exam code goes. It's and once you put it in here and you click apply, all this billing information goes away. Then you click next. It's going to ask you to confirm everything. You hit submit. You will instantly get an email, right? I mean, instantly within the next few minutes, but they're going to send you an email. So they're going to send you an email 7 days before, 4 days before, and the day of. They're going to send you the same information, which is going to be about testing and making sure your system's good and, you know, securing the space and all that stuff. So that's it. That's how you sign up. So the main thing for you to remember is don't forget this, the voucher code goes right here, almost at the next to last step. Now, if you want to use an in-person testing center, I would recommend that you schedule probably a few weeks after, once you're in to study. But, you know, I think you need to probably on day one, just go check your testing center and in general, see how far out in advance they're booked up. If they're booked up 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and then you know you probably need to wait that long. If they're booked a month or 2 in advance, which would be really strange, then you know you need to do that. So I would go online and just look at your testing center's availability. That way, by the way, you can also get your testing center's number to like check on them if you want to check on the COVID protocols they follow, if that's of interest to you. But this is where the voucher gets entered. Any questions about that? Yeah, so that's what you do. So Matthew, to go back to the beginning. No water. Oh, at the center. I think it's okay if you touch your face at the center. You're not allowed anything else though. There's no water. The advantage though is that you don't have to worry about people walking in. You don't have to set up a desk for lockdown and all that other stuff, right? So there's a lot of setup you don't have to do if you go to a testing center.
One quick data point. I took a test last year at one of these testing centers, and I think they made you put on noise canceling headphones and you were patted down. They didn't do a full TSA pat, but they definitely had you empty your pockets and ran a metal detector over me. It was a big deal test center. Like people are taking their CPAs, but you sat at a desk, you could not leave. And then 2 hours later, you were done or whatever, however long. So it's uncomfortable, but I think I still would choose to do it at a center versus at home.
God, I've never been patted down or done headset in my life. That must have been a one where you did high security stuff. That's really interesting.
Actually, it was for my PMP, but I was sitting next to people who were getting like their CPAs, so it was like a big deal place.
Huh.
Wasn't because I was becoming a CIA spy.
Uh-huh. Sure, Jonathan.
Look, I mean, you mentioned Harry Potter. It's like the Bond movies. You just have to shoot 2 people. That's it. That's like 10 minutes.
Fair enough. Wow. Okay. So any other questions about the testing center? Yeah, I still would prefer a testing center even with that. By the way, who has it at this point? Who has access to the practice exams? Because I'm going to pivot a little bit because I'm going to cover the study guide tomorrow because I just wanted to get you exposed to some questions. So any questions about the testing center and who has access to the practice exams as of right now? Okay. It's still pending. There's some provisioning that usually happens there. So let me show you a little the practice exam for the machine learning specialty. So this is going to be included as part of you taking this course. This is a gentleman, John Bonso, is the primary kind of like mastermind behind this whole thing. Inside his exams, he has timed mode exams, review mode exams, section based, and final test. So I'm going to go over the certification study guide tomorrow in detail and talk about some of those pieces there. But I want to leap ahead a little bit and talk about the practice exams because I also want us to get into to understanding what we're going to be asked. In general, you're going to focus on the review mode exams, which obviously, I use this a lot. So this is at Tutorials Dojo, which is you're basically going to get a promo code. This is on your student portal. You're going to go create an account on this portal, tutorialsdojo.com. This is all in your student portal, which is basically accessing your practice exams. You're going to take the code that's in that portal and you're going to basically buy the exam using that code, but you're going to get it for free, right? And you can use any email address you want. If we look at the student portal, it should be right here, accessing your practice exams, right? This is it. There's the coupon code, which should give you a $0 checkout. Okay. And I will paste, the link is right here, but I'm going to copy the link address and paste it in case you want to jump on it. But that takes you to where I just was, this link. Hold on, Jonathan. So are you logged into, this is this pipeline? You're saying that the accessing practice exams, that's not opening up a Word doc? Huh. Why is it working for me? We should
It
all
is
be
not. It just spins and stops.
And you're logged in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, weird. Are you, that's interesting. What browser are you using?
Safari.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't use Safari. I would
try
probably, try Chrome or Firefox. Shouldn't do that. So, but that's weird. Even with Safari, I know there are other people.
Everything else is downloaded. This is the first time it just, I thought you just hadn't given us access yet.
No. This should all be available. The worst thing that would happen is that the link wouldn't load up, right? But all of this has been populated because once the file is there, it's added into the portal, so you should see it. And Karita, I'm surprised Edge sometimes gives us problems too. But that's where you would grab it in order to get access to the practice exams. Now, what you would do is you would come in here and add the practice exam into your cart, which you notice I have a cart up here, which has machine learning into it. And then I'm going to take this off actually. And once you go to checkout, this is where you would put in the code. Here it is. See, it says have a coupon. Click here to enter your code. It's in the upper top left. That's where you would enter the code in question. And that coupon code should zero out everything. So good. I'm glad we talked about that. Then you apply it. It should zero out. Go to town. You're good. Oh, one thing I did note, actually, I think it actually says that you have to use your bah.com email address. Let's see. No, it doesn't say that. Oh, wait, yes. You must use the same email address to create your account. So I stand corrected that you used on file to register for the course. Which email address did you use? Well, that's actually oddly enough relatively easy for me to answer because when you all registered for the course, you pretty much all used your bah.com email address. I don't think anybody used like a Gmail address. So to answer that question, you do have to use your bah.com email address when you create your account. So if you didn't do that, just change it in the existing account or just create a new account with your bah.com email address. That way, when you go to checkout, then it will give it to you for free. Okay, so you've got it. Let's say you've got it. Let's say you follow the directions, you got it. And Michael told you yesterday that he wanted you to get 90% on the 2 exams, practicing one at a time in order to make sure that you had all the information kind of in your brain, right? Now, this might be a little bit premature because you haven't necessarily gone through all the spreadsheet yet and gone through the experience training and the workshops and the other stuff that are listed there. But let's go take a look at some of these sample questions just to kind of get a feel for it. Okay, so, wow, I did all those. Hold on. Yeah, let me do this really quick. All right. You restart the quiz. So that way we can do it together. Okay. So here we are at question 1. And notice that, remember, modeling was like 36%, right? So we've created a neural network model for image classification task. Specialists encountered an overfitting issue where the validation loss is much greater than the training loss. What action would most likely solve the problem and how should the specialist justify it? Now, we haven't talked about overfitting or underfitting well, and we definitely haven't talked about networks, right? So Joel, I believe they're from at least this set is from the same pool, right? It's from the same pool of questions. They just random, like the order is randomized because I think there's only 130 questions here. So yeah, so we haven't talked about overfitting and underfitting yet. We certainly haven't talked about neural networks, right? But in this particular case, it's not generalizing well, right? It's an overfitting issue, right? And since we are talking about a neural network, we're going to increase the dropout rate at the hidden layer, which I think is what most of you put as well, right? Now, the purpose wasn't necessarily to get that right. Some of you are looking at this and going, Michael, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Good, because we're like halfway through the second day of class. Some of you, this is your first time. You should have been completely uncomfortable even looking at that question. So if you weren't, and you're not as, and you are not a seasoned data scientist, engineer, ML specialist, then that's the right reaction to have, just so we're clear, right? Don't take this as a point of defeat at that point. Here's why we have you have these, what I also call study exams / practice exams, is that John's going to tell you, he's going to explain this to you, right? So in addition to all the training that you're getting here with the 4 days, all the labs and, quasi sick instructor that you have, and plus all the certification study guide, he's actually going to help you learn the material. So my recommendation is that use these study guides, especially when you first go through them, has a way to dive deeper into these subjects, right? So I highly recommend that you only do the review mode exams because they're going to give you the answers right away. But then this will talk, by the way, about deep neural networks, which contain multiple kind of non-linear hidden layers, and they can deal with complicated relationships between their inputs and their outputs, which is great because at every layer we're doing inputs and outputs. However, if we have a limited set of training data, many of these complicated relationships will create noise, so they'll exist in the training set, but not in the real test data, even if it's drawn from the same distribution. This can lead to overfitting, and methods have been developed for reducing this like sampling noise, right? So dropping hidden layers, right, is one of the techniques that you can use to address this issue, right? And it basically prevents overfitting. That's what it's for. So this is where you drop out certain hidden and visible units that are in a neural network. In this case, we were dropping out, I think, the hidden units, if I remember correctly. Let me disable Slack while it's sending me Amazon notifications. The other thing that's great about these practice exams is going to tell you why these options are wrong, right? So you're going to go through and you're going to be told, like, this is why, like, the optimization process isn't trapped to the saddle point, right? So it's highly unlikely that this is the reason why. This is why, by the way, you haven't reached the global minimum, right? And increasing the epoch numbers is incorrect. This is why it's not generalizing well enough, right? Overfitting, by the way, means that the model is already complex enough, right? So adding additional nodes would add more complexity, which would add it to overfit even more, right? So it's like, this is the kind of thing you're going to learn. And especially if you're new to this is going to be maddening because you're not going to just breeze through these questions. You're going to answer the question even after you've done all the training. And then this is going to force you to think about how to apply the expertise that you've gotten. Okay. Now, if you're seasoned at this already, well, that's great. This is just going to validate what you some of the things you probably need to know for the exam. That's it. But if you understand how this works already, then you just read the question, you answer it, you move on. If you don't understand how this works, then it's going to give you all the explanation you want. In addition, it's going to refer to all the source documentation. And if John has a video and a cheat sheet about the services that are talked about, he's going to put those here as well. So, the order of things that we asked you to kind of look at was to use the study guide to kind of fill in your experience, use some of the labs, of which I'm going to give you a list of public labs that you can do in your own Amazon account to help round out your experience. So you got the expertise, how the system should work. You got the experience, how the system does work because you experienced it. And then this rounds it out by having you validate both that experience and that expertise, that knowledge and practice taking this exam. Remember, this is a 3-hour exam. So it's a little bit like training for a 5K. I know that sounds like some version of like geek glorydom. But the intention here is to have you do this because you're going to have to build up your stamina. No one I know does this and does not get tired. Right? At like hour 2. And Keith, you have a valid point. So I apologize. It's more like an ultra marathon. So, or just a marathon, right? So maybe a half. Anyway, so yeah, so this is what we have this for. Let me show you one, maybe one or two more, and then we'll stop for the day. All right, working for an e-commerce company, and they're using Comprehend. What does Comprehend do? Probably should know, right? Application is going to analyze sentiments for reviews about various electronic products. During development, he noticed that all device model names are labeled as commercial item. They want to identify the model names that are a more specific category, right? What is the most appropriate result? Anybody know the answer to this? Yeah, so something to learn about Comprehend, right? So in this case, you're going to actually create a custom entity model, right? In order to have this function. So basically, Comprehend by default, it basically is going to allow you, because new entity types are not supported by default. So it's going to allow you basically to do that. So, so creating a custom entity model compared to using like string matching is probably more appropriate. So it'd be different to do that through string matching. So what's going to happen here is the model can learn the context of the product codes that are most likely going to appear, and then make predictions, inferences, even though it's never previously seen the exact product codes. So, and then it goes through and says, hey, look, this is actually possible, right? It isn't as effective though as just hitting a checkbox and just letting the system figure it out itself, right? If you've never seen Comprehend before, here's one of John's cheat sheets, right? This is an NLP service. It derives like significant, meaningful information from unstructured texts. So if you've don't know this service, this is what you do to kind of like run through this. Karita, sounds like you knew that already, actually. Good. All right, one last one, then we're done. To improve product discoverability, companies decided to train a model that will classify products from images taken from their customers' mobile phones. Customers reached a 95.62 validation accuracy. However, the accuracy dropped when it was deployed into production. What do we need to do to improve real world accuracy? Yeah, are we thinking data augmentation? By the way, they'll ask questions like that and then say, hey, we were really able to get a lot of returns on pictures from top down, but we can't do sideways pictures or something like that. Like, it's like, then you're like, oh yeah, well, you just need to feed the model more pictures with more variation to them, right? So yeah. And then, by the way, it's going to come in and talk about, like, if you don't know what distributed stochastic neighbor embedding is, right? Yeah, that one I know how to say, but I can't say the other one. I'm not even gonna try and say it. By the way, t-SNE is basically used just to preprocess a data set that has highly correlated variables. So even if you've never seen that before, the wrong answers will still teach you things. And this is why we have the practice exams, okay? So hopefully you're clear at the value at this point in time. Just note that we're gonna go over the study guide tomorrow, and then we're gonna spend the remainder of our our prep time, if you will, just running through questions. I'm gonna talk some more about strategies to like peel back the question, dissect and analyze it, and some of the things around the answers. Okay. So fabulous day today. I know that the labs, at least for myself and others, did not go the way we wanted to. I appreciate those of you running through it. I appreciate the troubleshooting. It was awesome. Does anyone have any burning questions before we close for the day? We are officially done. So those of you who need to go. I'll see you at 8:30 in the morning. Otherwise, I'm just going to hang out for just a minute or two longer in case someone has anything we need to talk about. Okay. So thank you. We'll see you in the morning.
Hello, it's the dulcet tones of Jonathan again.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, I was going to write you an email, but since we're here, can you, when you contact your colleagues, see if they could gin up a notebook that works for this in the next 24 hours so that we do have, or at least I have, a working notebook that I can sort of see the stuff as it goes through. And also I'm thinking that tomorrow I might just switch projects, since apparently more people did not have problems with like credit card fraud or whatever. But I'd love to have the airline one with whatever the issues were with the troubleshooting, put in and validated. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I don't control Amazon, so I don't look at that.
Okay, it
all I
really
can
is
do
it's their notebook. So
yeah, all I can do is put the request in. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. But they, I've already sent them an email letting them know there were problems. So just we'll see how they respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're too busy building a rocket ship to Mars. Good luck. To consider it part of the challenge. ... Yeah. Okay. No, cool. All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your working on that, and we'll see you bright and early.
Yeah, and I will take a look at it and see if we can get to a working notebook, even if we have to import it. So I will take a look at it myself. So we just ran out of time to really figure it out.
Yeah. Totes.
Yeah. All right, Michael, let's see. I do have actually a few minutes, so I'm not running off to my next thing until 5:15. So
Okay.
if you want to share and talk about questions, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you keep saying, wait. Can I? Oh, wait, someone else is sharing their screen.
Oh, that would be me. Let me stop it.
My
There you go.
bad.
Yeah.
Come on. Sweet. So when I remove, I remember asking you earlier about like when I remove the duplicated ones that you keep coming up with 0. I don't know what that exactly means if I'm removing them from the original data frame. So I guess what are you doing like at this point in the lab?
Well, are
And
you evaluating the duplicates data frame, which should contain the duplicates? And so therefore, if you evaluate that, it should be 0, or are you evaluating the entire data set?
I mean, it says to use the original. So I think I'm evaluating the entire data set. And I'm attempting to remove the duplicates that have a customer ID of whatever. And if those match, I remove it. Is that not what I'm supposed to be doing?
Well, let's see. Hold on, let me open mine back up here. Let's see. Data projects. Let's see, we're on the student reviews. So what is your, just out of curiosity, because it looks like mine was a little mangled, what does your solutions guide say?
Where do I find the solutions guide?
Oh, you
Here?
haven't been referring to the solutions guide? That's impressive, actually. So if you go back to the notebook, the like next tab over, and
Yeah.
click on the double dots up at the top,
Yeah.
and then click on solutions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
that'd be very helpful.
oh man, I'm sorry. I thought you were just like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm not looking at the solution. And I think
Oh,
mine
no.
got mangled. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can
brother,
see.
I am so sorry. I thought you knew that you were supposed to be looking at the solution side by side with your, if you get stuck, that you were supposed to refer to the solutions. I thought you were just like,
Oh,
okay,
no. So I
knock this out.
originally was, yeah, I originally was just going to ask you like in about like after we went through this part, like, oh, do we get solutions in the end? I thought we were supposed to do this by ourselves, and then like hopefully like after every lab we get like a solution to it. But I didn't know.
Yeah, you are always presented with the full solution as a folder inside of your notebook so that you can actually like, so if you get hung up, it doesn't eat too much of your time, right? Now, the thing that we were troubleshooting earlier with Dakota and others was that like, you know, the solution was
Yeah.
wrong, right? But for in your particular case, if you were looking for a way to solve it, that would be a way, but it also give you the context, right?
Gotcha.
Around the frames that you should be looking at. So
Okay, yeah, that's perfectly good to know. I'm sorry I asked so many questions. I didn't realize we had the answers.
no. I think if I wasn't flipping back and forth, resetting context, I probably would give you better answers. But I think like the way that you approached it was a little bit more sophisticated than what we usually see. And your question around like, well, hold on, wait, shouldn't I be looking for duplicates, you know, out of this data frame versus that data frame? Absolutely, right? And so I
Yeah.
think if you go through that and look at it and follow it logically, you'll see exactly what the thought process was around how to solve the duplicate issues. Right? And
Okay,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
I'll be able to get this done pretty easily now.
Good. Okay.
All right,
Excellent.
thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Everyone doing okay? Cool. I'm going to assume that you're all gone except for Michael and I. Have a good night, Michael. We'll see all the rest of you tomorrow.
You too.